The past 2 years of American politics have been more divisive than ever. Many Americans cannot see eye to eye anymore. However, there is a growing number of Americans choosing not to identify with either political party. In 2025, the governor of Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham, has noticed this and decided to sign a bill opening up all state political party primaries for voters regardless of party affiliation. This gave the 26% of New Mexicans who don't identify with either political party a chance to vote freely in party primaries. However, for many Americans in states such as Arizona or Missouri, they have two choices: to vote in a party primary for a party they don't feel represented at all, or risk the chance of not voting at all. Today I will argue on why party primaries should be open for all voters. According to the Washington Post, on April 21st, 2026, many Americans say neither political party represents them the best. In states with closed primaries, this will produce candidates who will alienate the general voter, leading to lower voter turnout. This gives a small number of party purists huge chunks of power on who gets represents us on state or federal government. First, I will discuss the problem, second, the cause, and third, the solution. Problem. The first of the problem is unrepresentative candidates. And according to Unite America on September 12, 2025, states for closed primaries produce candidates who are more on the ideological ends of the party spectrum. For example, during the Georgia Senate Republican primary in 2022, they nominated a candidate who's hardcore pro-life in a state that has growing views on abortion, leading to the defeat of that candidate in the general. Another example, the Oregon Democratic Party in the congressional district that leans more moderate nominated a progressive, leading to the defeat of that candidate. The second type of problem is low voter turnout. And according to Emerald Insight on November 27, 2024, generally, party primaries usually get lower voter turnout. However, states with closed primaries to get even lower voter turnout. For example, every 4 years during the midterm primaries, at least 80% of eligible voters choose not to vote at all in the party primaries. Now that I've discussed the problem, I'm now going to present the cause. The first type of cause is state laws. According to CQ Researcher on February 7, 2026, the growing demographic of voters are independent leaning. However, there's also a growing number of states closing down primaries due to state laws. For example, states want to close primaries to protect the parties who want partisan interests. For example, another example is the state of Wyoming. They closed down the primaries in 2023 to protect their interests. If you look at this map, you can see states with open and closed primaries. The purple represents open primaries such as Washington and Wisconsin. The orange represents closed primaries such as Oregon and New York. And the pinkish represents modified states. They're neither open or closed. Another type of cause is state parties. According to UCLA Anderson Review on April 29, 2026, state political parties want to close down primaries to protect partisan interests and limit outside influence. For example, they want to have control over their nominee and want to make sure the person that's voting is truly a member of their party. Arguments of the opposing side who aren't in favor of open primaries. The party purists in state political parties often argue that they have the right to close the primaries due to them owning the political party. For example, they can choose who controls their nominee because they want to make sure that member is truly a member of the party. They have control who gets to participate in the contest, and state political parties are private organizations. Some refutes against those claims include that not many people are truly party loyalty members. In fact, there is a growing number of 45% of voters who are choosing to identify as independents, and the argument against that state political parties are funded by private organizations. You argue that they're funded by taxpayer money, since elections are funded by our taxes. Now that I've discussed the cause, now I'm going to present the solution. The first type of solution action step is societal, and according to University of Chicago on June 30th, 2025, states have the power to control how primary reform is and can rewrite laws. For example, states such as California and Washington enacted top two primary systems. Another example is that these top two primary systems make sure that all candidates are on the primary primary ballot. Additionally, top two systems make sure that whoever advances to the primary election are more moderate due to a lot of the primary candidates being on the same ballot, reflecting the more moderate population of those states. The second type of solution action step is individual. According to Forbes magazine on January 26, 2026, you have the right to make sure your voice is heard on primary reform. For example, you have the right to share your voice in polls. Another example is that you have a right to share your voice in voting. You could vote for primary initiative reforms such as voting for ranked choice voting, or even voting to open up primaries. Today I proved on why party primaries should be open for all voters. First, I discussed the problem, second, the cause, and third, the solution. For the residents of New Mexico, thanks to the conclusion of open primaries, they will no longer be represented by people who don't represent them, due to these people in closed primaries being more ideological than the general population of New Mexico. They'll now be represented by people they feel more representative by thanks to the open primary states, and be more moderate. For the residents of Mexico, they will now have a new voice thanks to the inclusion of open primaries. Thank you.